Alright gents, Alex from Forever Alpha. If you don't know who I am a health and fitness, I don't want to use the word influencer, but I've been in the intermittent fasting space for a long time on Twitter, Instagram, the blog, Forever Alpha blog. Mostly, yeah, intermittent fasting. I used to be overweight. Now I'm 10%, well, I'm probably more like 9% right now. But I've been 10% body fat for years, year round, and muscular as well. And I help other men to do the same thing, basically. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about some of the mistakes I made on the way here, because I feel like I put a lot of pictures onto Twitter, for example, or Instagram, looking ripped, six pack and muscles and everything. And people just assume that you were always like that, and their questions reflect that. So they'll be like, so what are you training right now? How are you training? How are you eating right now? Right now? And it's just the wrong question to ask. The better question is, when you were overweight and you were struggling like I currently am, the person asking the question, what were you doing that worked at the time? That is a far smarter question to ask, because what worked back then is not the same thing as what works for me right now. After 12 years of training, 11 years of training, and 5 years of intermittent fasting, things do change. So in this video, I want to talk about a few things I was doing at the time when I was overweight. I was about 18% body fat. There are pictures on my website that were not working, and then kind of how I fixed them. And it will be the same thing for you as well. So one of the biggest things I did, and this was when I was 19, so 9 years ago, I was overweight at the time, and I was about 17-ish% body fat. I did the caliper measurements. I didn't get a DEXA at that particular moment. So I was about that kind of area. And I knew I wanted to get leaner. Obviously, I didn't like the way I was looking. Some of my female housemates at the time were dropping certain comments, basically nicely saying, you used to be quite hot, now you're not. What happened? Reading between the lines. And I obviously knew what they were trying to say, because one of them used to fancy me a bit, and she was basically nicely saying, you've changed physically. And I knew I wasn't looking the same in the mirror. So I was looking at keto. So obviously you all know what keto is, less than 50 grams of carbs a day, high protein, high fat, try and burn as much fat as possible. And a lot of carnivore guys on Twitter are like this now. And the message that, I was looking at a lot of the foods. It made a lot of sense. When your insulin levels are that low, your blood sugar is that low, your body has no option but to burn the body fat. And you can eat as much fat as you want, and you will never, ever, 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 ever store any of it. And that just didn't turn out to be true at all. And a lot of you guys who are in your mid 20% body fat, for example, you'll know what I'm talking about, because you just stall out. You're at maintenance. You don't get any leaner. And this is where counting calories at the beginning is kind of important. But I would have these massive plates of fatty meats at breakfast, and cheeses and avocado. And I was a pig. I used to eat so much. It was ridiculous. And I would have all of these fatty meals, and I'd do the same again at lunchtime. And I was indirectly really putting this unlimited fats theory to the test by these massive plates of chorizo and all sorts of stuff. And I did not lose a single pound following this. I didn't gain any weight either, but I didn't lose anything. And I'd have more meat again in the evenings, and just no carbs, and my sleep quality was a bit worse, even though I wasn't even in a deficit. And I didn't lose a single pound. And I was training 5 days a week. I was in the gym, training hard, sleeping well-ish. So I was sleeping well before that, and just nothing. I didn't lose anything. It was a waste of time. So my point here is that you can overdo the fats, and it's not that difficult to do, especially if you're eating really higher fat meats. If you're eating, I don't know, steak, a fattier steak where you're really chewing and you're adding some veg in there, some cruciferous veg, some greens, some real fiber, and I didn't really have any fiber back then when I was doing this, it's a lot harder to overdo. So if you're having like boiled eggs is a really good one. They're very satiating. Boiled eggs, I don't know, you're having some greens, some spinach, some broccoli, some big chewy steaks that have fat, but they take up so much time chewing. Your jaw's just like getting a real pump on after 5 minutes. It's a lot harder to overdo, and you'll probably burn fat doing that. So it depends on what food you're going for, but you can overdo the fats and it ain't difficult at all. Other mistakes. This one was when I was younger, even younger, and this wasn't. I repeated it again briefly for like a couple of weeks at a time later on when I was at 22, 23. It was never a long-term thing though. But there is a big difference between beer and wine, at least in my experience. Beer, and I would say this is especially true for Brits, like you'll know exactly what I'm talking about if you're from the UK, and the culture is, the drinking culture in the UK is definitely worse than the US, and it is a lot worse than the Mediterranean. Northern Europeans are kind of leaning in the UK direction. America is as well, but it's not as bad as Britain. And this is that it is very, very easy to sink a lot of beer in one night. And a lot of beer means 1,500 calories of pure estrogen and bloat and crap, and plus a hangover the next morning where you're more likely to eat more food and more junk food especially. It's very, very easy to do because the environment and the culture is set up for it. The pubs, your mates, it's very, very easy to do. If you switch this, whether you're in the UK or you're on holiday or you're on the weekends and this is your way of, I don't know, having a little bit of fun and making the diet a little bit more sustainable without like yo-yo dieting and going back and forth. If you switch it for red wine or whiskey, you are far less not only is not the estrogen in there or the calorie content in there in the first place, so these things are inherently better, plus the red wine's got the antioxidants. And when I say better, they are less bad. None of them are good for you, like obviously, but they're less bad than beer is. Not only that, but it's also almost impossible to have 1,500 calories worth. I mean, how much red wine do you have to drink to get 1,500 calories down? I mean, that's 2.5 bottles. I mean, that is very difficult to do in one night. That's a lot of wine. Same with whiskey. Like Jesus, that is stomach pumping levels of booze. You know, like that's crazy. So it's very, very difficult to overdo. It's with red wine, you're far more likely to have, I don't know, 3 glasses and that's 600 calories than loads more. Plus, there's not the estrogen. Plus, there's the antioxidants. Plus, if you're only having 3 glasses of wine, you're not going to have a hangover the next day. I know people like to moan about the red wine head. That's if you have, I don't know, 5, 6 glasses. If you have a lot less than that, you'll be fine. Drink water, have some vitamin C before you go to bed, and there won't be any hangover. But they are the big 2 mistakes that I made. I think a small third one would be things like not having black coffee and electrolytes and the basic morning setup. So instead of having a big fat feast, keto feast with 1,500 calories in it, if for breakfast, instead of doing that, yes, move to intermittent fasting, but also have black coffee. Hopefully you can, there you go. So I do still do this, definitely, because it's just too good. Black coffee and electrolytes every morning so that your appetite is controlled, but without going lightheaded. So the electrolytes give you the salt, potassium, everything else, sodium rather, and that just sets you up for the day. And you could train in the mornings, you could train fasted, as long as you're not in too big of a deficit. You won't get lightheaded, you'll have more energy, you'll have stronger muscle contractions in the gym, and you'll just have more energy whilst being in a deficit. So it's kind of a win-win. So that would be the third mistake, not doing those things. Let me know in the comments section or by email or whatever what mistakes you've made, and if you relate to any of them. They were the biggest ones for me, and since I've fixed them, I've just been lean year round, like for the rest of my life kind of thing. And I don't intend to regain anything anytime soon. And this was 10 years ago as well, so it's not like a temporary thing. But yeah, if you want any more information, obviously go to foreveralphablog.co.uk. The Max Discipline coaching program is now reopened, and it's revamped as well, so it's better than ever. Again, go to the website, you can see all the details for that. And I'll see you in the next one.